Well, Next News Network pioneered the new media revolution at the White House months ago. Something happened this week that has the legacy media establishment in absolute meltdown. A particular independent journalist with millions of followers just asked a question that exposed the entire propaganda machine, and the press secretary's response left mainstream reporters visibly shaken. Why are network executives suddenly demanding pre-approval of Trump-related stories, and what caused that high-profile 60 Minutes resignation? And why did three major networks simultaneously change their coverage policies last Tuesday? Well, tonight we expose the secret emergency meeting that took place at a D.C. hotel and the bombshell memo that proves what we've been saying all along. Yes, my friends, the walls are crumbling, and we're here to pick up the pieces. And if you're like me and you're getting into that age where your body hurts all the time, then listen up. Before you reach for another painkiller, you need to know about this little known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation. You've probably heard about turmeric's benefits, but not all turmeric is the same. A leading pain doctor discovered a turmeric extract that is 200 times more powerful than standard turmeric, and when his patients tried it, the results were stunning. The formula attacks pain at the source, turning it off like a light switch. So visit goldenrevive.com/NNN to see how it works. It's linked down below. The fake news was running today at the White House. Look at them go. Look at them running. Holy cow. All of them. Stampede. Caroline Levitt posting this. What happened?
You said we thought you said you were going to.
And I believe this is when President Trump was there at the White House, walking out to look for a location on the lawn to place two flagpoles. A very rare moment for the president to come out like that, especially in just completely unguarded, an unguarded moment. Obviously guarded, he's a Secret Service around him, but you know what I'm saying. And it sent the mainstream media into an absolute stampede. Now, speaking of fake news, the establishment media is crumbling because for decades they have controlled the narrative, manipulated the facts, and silenced alternative voices. Now Trump's White House is transforming how America gets their news, and the old guard is terrified. This changes everything. Yes, Tim Pool was in the new media seat yesterday. Now, of course, I chided him a little bit online and yesterday about not wearing a suit, and I've seen all the back and forth commentary about it. I understand he's trying to stay on brand, and especially with his remarks about Zelensky not wearing a suit at the White House, maybe wear a suit, but this is the new media. The rules are being rewritten, aren't they? Maybe next time I go there, I'll just wear my black T-shirt, and some shorts, some flip-flops. What do you think? Should I do that? I don't know. Well, Tim Pool took the new media seat in the White House briefing room, gaining massive attention with millions of followers, and asked about reshuffling the briefing room. Let's check in with Real America's Voice on this.
When can we expect Tim Pool? Tim Pool sat in the new media seat today and got a lot of attention, obviously, when he walked in. A lot of people are familiar with him, millions and millions of followers. His question to Caroline Levitt, I thought, was a really good one. When can we expect to see kind of a reshuffling of the White House briefing room, perhaps insinuating that some of us might be able to have a seat in there? Didn't quite give a definitive answer on that, but definitely acknowledged the change that's going on in that briefing room by adding people like Tim Pool and people like ourselves in that very coveted space.
That's Brian Glenn, Real America's Voice. And of course, you guys know, I've been in the White House briefing room for weeks at a time. Tom McCullough, our other White House correspondent as well, covering what's going on there in real time with our millions of followers. Now, here's Pool calling out mainstream media outlets that march in lockstep on false narratives. Great question. Very bold. Right to their faces. Here's that question.
What's being Many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you can comment on that unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome diverse viewpoints in this room, which is one of the reasons we have you in here, and there's many new faces in this room in comparison to the previous administrations. We want to welcome all viewpoints into this room. We welcome unbiased journalists who really care about the truth and the facts and the accuracy, and you rightfully pointed out the Maryland Man story, which I, from this podium, when The Atlantic published it, on that very first day, I came to this podium and said, this is wrong. The press in this room have this story wrong, and we have seen more and more evidence come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president was always on the right side of this issue to deport this illegal criminal from our community. And it is despicable to see the media continue to refer to this individual as someone who is just a peaceful man living his life in Maryland. This was and always has been an illegal criminal, an MS-13 gang member, and a designated foreign terrorist. And the administration maintains our position to deport these individuals from our community. So,
for the first time in history, the media belongs to the people, and we are never going to give it up again. Gary Franchi making history in the White House press room. The establishment is praying that we lose momentum, but we cannot let that happen. Here is Ivory Hecker reporting on my State of the Media address that I gave.
Loot that, and I just want to express my gratitude for where we're at in the country with our freedom and our free press compared to a few years ago when there was so much fear that the freedom and the free press was being taken away. I think a lot of people prayed and fought. Their prayers were answered and their fight was rewarded. And so I want to salute that and the fact that now we have independent journalists in the White House press corps. My friend Gary Franchi is making history this year, covering the White House in person there for his own independent YouTube channel. And he said something that was really pertinent from the White House press room the other day when he acknowledged that these adversaries who are trying to take away freedom, don't like individual liberty, don't like free speech. They're hoping that where we're at right now, we lose momentum. And it is so key that we don't.
They are praying that we lose momentum, that we get comfortable, that we squander this opportunity. We cannot let that happen. So if you are an independent journalist, keep going. If you're a citizen reporter, keep digging. If you're a viewer, a reader, a listener, support this movement and share the truth, because there is no turning back. For the first time in history, the media belongs to the people. And we are never going to give it up again.
As you know, I've shifted a lot of my focus to educating independent journalists, news influencers, instead of doing all the news myself to get more boots on the ground. So if you want to join my next class of students next month, you can comment news below and I will send you more info. And I would love to have you be my mentee and empower you in any way I can.
Make sure you do that. Follow Ivory Hecker on X and check out her new program. Now, the American people are saying enough is enough. They're tired of media screening out viewpoints, favoring one party, and pushing narratives over facts. Well, what is the solution?
Into a week. The problem is that the right wing, hello, Scott, has taken advantage of this situation, I think, quite cleverly, quite wisely. They've played into a weakness.
What situation?
The situation of media being under attack. And so they've created a situation where...
You've almost got it. Keep going. What the right wing is taking advantage of is finally the American people saying enough is enough. They're tired of feeling like the mass media screens out one viewpoint versus another in political coverage. They're tired of media institutions favoring one party over another. They're tired of narratives over factual stories. If I had any advice for 60 Minutes or anybody else, it would be just cover the news and try to be fair about it and stop putting your finger on the scale, especially during campaigns.
you're talking about the old mass media myth that you could have this thing that was in the middle, the Walter Cronkite saying, that's the way it is, when it wasn't for many Americans the way it was, when people were pissed off.
But people back in those days trusted the media, did they
not?
No,
they just couldn't be heard because there was no two-way. Now we have the internet.
Look at the Gallup polling. It was here, and now it's here. It's fallen off of a cliff.
Yeah, we do have that Gallup polling about trust in media, and now, as in recent years, and let's be honest, Scott, a lot of this is driven by the rhetoric on your side of the aisle.
I mean, it's not. You think it's driven by the rhetoric and not the performance?
Absolutely.
But my point is this: if you're CBS or any other news outlet, the reason that you have lost trust ought to be obvious to you, and the way to fix it also ought to be obvious to you, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump and everything to do with the product. Just try to make a better product that appeals to more people. And the way you appeal to more people is by not crapping on half or more than half of the country because of their values and political viewpoints.
I think that is what you'd end up with in that press room then is, and these are my words, the freak show that Trump wants. Trump tries to devalue media. Why should we value his freak show there? Leave it to the freaks.
I think calling them freaks.
I don't think there's any disagreement on that, by the way.
I mean, he called these new media sources the freak show. They're not freaks. They have audiences.
Some of them are.
They have audiences, and there's a reason that they're thriving is because people are starved for information that they think they can trust. They're not freaks. They're filling a need in this country, in my opinion.
Right.
Oh, we certainly are. Now, if it were up to me, I'd kick a lot of these outlets out, says the new White House correspondent. These new media voices are sycophants. They represent the working class of America, the people who want to put this country first. The legacy media can only respond with eyes.
White House correspondent for that outlets like yourself might have a more prominent seat here?
Definitely. If it were up to me, I'd kick a lot of these outlets out. I view my role here more as sort of reporting on not so much the White House, but really the media.
Natalie Winters is White House correspondent for Steve Bannon's show War Room.
Our bias is not to be sycophants for President Trump. Our bias is for our audience, which is the working class of America, the people who want to put this country first.
If Trump messes up, will you guys call it out?
Yeah, and we have. I think time and time again, particularly on the vertical and issue of immigration, we are not for stapling green cards to diplomas.
We met the new media correspondents on the day Trump announced tariffs that could upend the world economic order. As other news outlets reported on the tanking stock market, on Bannon TV, they celebrated.
This is the first day where a sitting president put America's working class first, and it's a glorious day to be standing here at the White House and to be able to say that and bring that to you.
Have the quote-unquote traditional reporters that are here been hostile to you at all?
Well, I think they know better than to come after Natalie Winters and the War Room posse, but it's the looks, the eye rolls, the conversations that I overhear.
That outlets like yourself.
Yes, I know it all too well. 60 Minutes executive quitting after declaring it's become clear I would not be allowed to run the show as I've always run it. Oh, this is big news.
Always run it, in part. Over the past months, it has become clear that I would not be allowed to run the show as I have always run it. So, having defended this show and what we stand for from every angle, over time with everything I could, I am stepping aside so the show can move forward. Owen's departure comes months after President Trump sued CBS for $20 billion after an October interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump claims the interview was deceptively edited. The network has denied that claim. Trump has also called for CBS to lose its broadcast license.
Yeah. Well, now the truth comes out. The media owners are feeling the pressure on their other interests to not annoy President Trump. Oh.
Sell to Sky. Yeah, so Ben, you've gotten there to the heart of the matter, which is that Paramount Global, where Sherry Redstone is the chairwoman, is trying to sell to Skydance Media, owned by Larry Ellison, need FCC approval for that. Donald Trump could theoretically and likely use that as leverage to try to stop that sale going forward. So now that top-down pressure coming from Sherry Redstone and Paramount down to 60 Minutes about the kinds of stories and the tone of the stories they're doing about Donald Trump. One way I heard it described was that this was Bill Owens just sending up a flare and really kind of falling on a grenade and giving up the job that he's held so well for so many years to put pressure and to make a public spectacle of what's going on at his company and others. So do you think this changes anything about the deal that's coming, perhaps, for Paramount, and about the way that 60 Minutes does its job?
You know, I wonder, I mean, I think the real question is what David Ellison, who runs Skydance, is going to do. You know, I mean, the purchaser has a lot of leverage here. And, you know, I think there is an illusion that they can let the people they're buying it from sort of neuter the news organization, take the heat, take the money, and move on. And I think, you know, what you see is you buy a company. I mean, I think, and you saw this with CNN's parent company, that if you try to ignore a huge mess and highly politicized scandal in your news division, you're going to have a tough few years. And I think it's incredibly naive that they think that they're just going to acquire this company, take the entertainment assets, have fun, and this whole thing will blow over. I think that's all I get.
Yeah. Well, the media lied for 72 hours about the Supreme Court case on deportation. A saboteur DOJ lawyer, a Democrat falsely claiming an MS-13 gang member was mistakenly sent to El Salvador. The truth, we won the case handily, and the deportation was completely legal.
Argument is that you don't want to motor through a bunch of things here, okay? Here's the argument on topic number one. DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said, because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case. Clearly, 9-0, a district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill, it's important. He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's
believe
an illegal
he is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. A DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty, a saboteur, a Democrat, put into a filing incorrectly that this was a mistaken removal. It was not. This was the right person sent to the right place. Now, some have said, well, but he had a thing called a withholding order. So a withholding order means you've been ordered deported, but an immigration judge is saying you cannot go back to a particular country. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order. Furthermore, the gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from El Salvador. Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even
to
allowed
what
me
country?
to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador with the deportation order. So his only options in life, Bill, his only options in life are to be deported to El Salvador or to be deported to some other country. That's it. He has a deportation order. So, Bill, you tell me, what country should we deport him to? Tell me, please.
Americans, the media revolution is here. For years, the legacy press controlled what you heard and saw. Now Trump is breaking their monopoly, bringing you new voices like ours that represent you. Corporate media showed they can't. They're not the free press anymore. That's right. And there's yours truly at the White House, and I will be going back on Sunday for President Trump's triumphant 100th day. That's next week on Wednesday. So the media revolution we've been leading at Next News Network isn't just reshaping who sits in the briefing room. It's fundamentally changing who controls America's narrative. While we pioneered this shift months ago, Tim Pool's confrontation this week exposed just how desperate the old guard has become. Ask yourself, why are CBS executives now demanding pre-approval of Trump's stories? What triggered that emergency meeting of network heads in a D.C. hotel? The collapse of 60 Minutes editorial independence isn't an isolated incident. It's evidence of a systemic panic. So did you notice how 3 major networks simultaneously changed their coverage policies last Tuesday? This coordinated shift proves what we have been saying for years. The narrative is controlled, manufactured, and now finally crumbling. Is this the beginning of the true media independence, or will the corporate giants find new ways to manipulate public opinion? Drop a comment below. And while you are there, hit the link in the description, tap more below the video, and open up the link to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com and grab some Next News merch.